Okay.
All right, I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for June 7th to order at 9 a.m. We have Ms. Greeno who would like to call in or whatever, web in, so I need a motion to allow her to do that. Carolyn motions.
I'll second.
Teresa seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so Terry's with us. So the only one we're missing is Kelly. So, all right, with that, we have minutes for approval. Larry moves. Teresa seconds. Any questions, concerns? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comments, anyone want to speak? No public? All private? Beautiful. Member comments? None? Okay, routine consent agenda, items that members would like removed. Larry?
6.4.
6.4. Others?
610, 611, and 612, please.
610, 611, and what?
612. Right?
Sure.
McHenry, it's McHenry. Is that the one you wanted?
Yeah.
I wanted 6.1, but I really don't have major issues. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. So.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. The MCRide.
Anything else? Okay, so the items that I'm showing removed are 1, 4, 10, 11, and 12. Anything else? Okay, if not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 6, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Teresa? Brian seconds. Go to vote. Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Yeah. Terry? You're muted, I think, Terry.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, great.
Yes? Okay. And myself, yes? Okay, so motion carries. We're on to item 6.1. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make
Brian, Teresa? Brian?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity just to ask a couple questions with regards to this. I think the agreement looks, from what we see, looks like it's a lot of cleanup work done, if you will. Were there, and my only question is, were there points of contention that made the negotiations difficult this year? And if you could identify for us what some of those were to the best of your ability in this meeting.
Their business representative was very difficult. And actually the union fired him in the middle of at the end of our negotiations, and we had to get they had to get a new business rep. That was the most difficult thing about this negotiations. Wages, I mean, it's always a point of contention, but I think we were very fair about going back and looking at, because it's a contract that has like 7 different positions. We looked at the market for each of those 7 positions, and we realized that only 2 of them were out of whack with their comparables. And so we did do market adjustments. We proposed, they didn't even ask for that. They asked for everybody to get a huge increase. And we're like, no, there's 2 of you that are kind of out of line, and we would like to move those, but the rest, you're all okay. So that was really it.
Okay, and the effort to adjust, I guess, just those 2 and focus on 2, they were received positively, or what was the response in that regard?
They were. So those 2 groups are the majority of the unit itself. They're our largest groups in that unit. And
Can you remind everybody of the groups?
sure. So we have, I'm going to use my fingers. We've got garage, civil process clerks, civil process servers, records clerks, court security, and dispatch.
Custodians.
And custodians. See, I needed an extra finger.
Court security.
Yep, I said court security.
Okay.
About 77 individuals, but it's a mix of all of our basically non-sworn individuals.
So this yet needs to be ratified then by the organization, correct? And
They hope to have it ratified before the cow.
Yes,
all right, so that was going to be my next
we have it
question.
scheduled for Monday.
I think it's going to be ratified,
Yes.
best of your knowledge. Perfect. Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question about this one we already passed? But it's not gonna change anything, but it has to do with,
Me?
yes.
Uh,
It's not gonna change anything, I'm just wondering, no.
Email maybe?
Well, is it pertaining to this item?
No, not this item, because we
Okay.
just vote on this item. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can stay, so.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Anything
Yes.
else
No.
about item
Not-
6.1?
No,
Okay. We'll go to both then. Teresa,
Yes.
Carolyn,
yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay,
Thank you.
motion carries. We're on to item 6.4. I'll entertain a motion. Larry? Brian? Larry?
Yeah, I just had some questions. Probably Peter's gonna be addressing it. Is there like a list of specific duties that this intern would be performing? Or is there something in the administration part that's not getting done presently because of time constraints?
No, I wouldn't say nothing that's not getting done. You know, this organization has a history over the years of working with NIU MPA interns. I'm an NIU MPA alum, Alicia is, Scott is, Adam is.
It's getting boring here.
And honestly, I'm sorry Alicia and Scott aren't here with me because we've been kind of noodling on this together to get in, kind of in the interest of succession planning and in the interest of kind of building a little more support for Alicia and Scott. Just maybe we should try and get an intern in here. What this is, would set that in we'd have the ability to do it. It's looking not good right now, is our likelihood that we're going to be able to secure an intern. With Alicia's honeymoon, we missed a window on a couple of in-person interviews, and it's competitive. There's far more employers that want these young professionals than there are. So there is a scenario by the time, if this passes, that even by the time we get to the county board, that we just ask to pull it. But this was to get that, to put that in place. So there isn't a glaring need that we're needing to fill there. It's just a little bit more support. It's 3 days a week of a young professional to be in here and augment things.
Well, I guess part of my concern here is that, if I remember correctly, our last intern that we had here turned into a full-time employee. And is that what's looking down the road for this intern, or, and it wasn't like they took another person's spot. I mean, they were just added staff, right? So to me, this is just added staff again.
It is added, support. There's no question. 2 years, we've been making a commitment essentially for 2 years to this individual. There's no commitment beyond that. Alicia was the intern that was hired 6-7 years ago, and we saw a need to add staff at that point. I don't know what 2 years is going to look like from now, Larry. But again, this one, I think it's looking very possible that we aren't going to hit on this round anyways. But that doesn't answer your question.
It doesn't exactly, well, it does somewhat, but that portion of it doesn't affect my vote, I guess, because if I vote one way or the other, it gives you the opportunity to do it, whether it's needed or not. I think you answered my question well enough.
I guess, and I have a second question. So this is 2 years, so this is 11,500 just for this year. What would be put in for next year's budget? I know you're saying this may not happen, but if it did happen.
Roughly double that.
Okay.
But then benefits and,
It's all together.
okay.
That's loaded.
Anything else?
You mean double the whole thing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Brian?
Well, I do appreciate the collaboration that occurs between NIU and the program and the local units of government, and I think this is a fine opportunity to try to identify individuals who may be potentially good employees and also give them experience working with local government. And so I do think that there's benefit for the collaborative internship program, and I I trust that there's no guarantee, but at the same time, there might be a good position and a good fit. And fit, it's all about fit and how an individual does. So with the uncertainty here, I'm still willing to support it. I think that's the right thing to do.
Awesome. Okay, we'll go to vote then. Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
No.
Terry?
No,
Was that a yes or a no?
it was a no.
No, okay. Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Myself? Yes. Okay, motion carries. We're on to item 610. I'll entertain a motion. Brian and Carolyn. Carolyn, you pulled this?
Yeah, and these could actually be, 610 and 611 probably could be handled together. Well, no, let's just do them separately. I just wanted to have a conversation about bridges in the county, and so that's why I put them through those. I guess what I'm kind of looking for is we've got, this one is county-owned, the next one is a township road. And so we have kind of had conversations before about, you know, our role in paying for county, township bridges. Now, and I'm not suggesting that we aren't part of that process because, you know, that does move equipment, farm equipment, everyone travels those roads, it is a county asset to an extent. So I guess that's less the issue here because this is a county-owned road. So we could go ahead and vote on this one and then, but I guess I would just pull them together, so.
Well, that's okay. We'll vote on 610. Any other questions regarding 610?
No.
Okay, we'll go to vote then. Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes,
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. 611, I'll entertain a motion.
So
Teresa
second.
and Carolyn, Larry. Got everyone wants it to, that's good.
No, Larry's good, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So go ahead.
Me and Larry. You, Tiana got confused.
She could I trust her, she'll.
But she looked up confused. I was giving
Sorry.
her an assist.
It's okay. All right, Carolyn, go ahead.
Okay, so, sorry, so I'm operating on very little sleep this morning. So this is the focus here, is how much, what is our responsibility? How much do we pay? Are there townships that don't contribute at all? Is there a reason for that? I know there's a history of our funding township bridges. I don't think we do it across for all township bridges when they come.
We do it for all township bridges.
All township bridges, but do all townships not, do some townships contribute and some not?
It's the same for everybody.
No, I mean, like, do they contribute their tax dollars?
I'm saying that the contribution by the townships are zero with all townships.
Okay,
There was one example that I've heard of where a township split the 50-50 match on a very small, minor bridge repair project. Most of our projects get funded with federal money, so that's an 80-20 match, 80% federal, 20% local match. And so of that 20% match on a rehabilitation project, a township shared the cost of the local match with us on one occasion over 30, 40 plus years that we've been doing townships. So very rare occurrence most of the time. Just like Mike had said, we do 100% locally funded on the match and get federal money for the township bridges. We take care of everything.
okay, so I'm thinking that that's a policy we maybe need to revisit.
Talking to the choir over here.
I know.
I've already
So-
voted no in transportation, and I'm gonna vote no here too, so I mean, it's just,
Well, yeah, okay.
I'm not blaming staff, because staff is
No.
all ready to address it. It's yeah.
Well, when you're done.
No, I think I just should shut up, so,
But,
go ahead, Larry.
and I don't disagree with you, but realistically, the township doesn't have any money, so it doesn't get done, right?
Some townships have money, Larry, other townships do not, and that is the quandary that the situation revolves around.
And some townships have more bridges than others.
And that is, and usually it's a township
There's no
that,
correlation between having money and having bridges.
Well,
Right.
and that's, I mean, this is my territory, I mean, there's no money there, and there's where the bridges are, the big tractors gotta go across them.
yes, so the townships
Is it-
out west,
Is it fair? Maybe, no, but I feel that the northwest part of the county gets that unfair treatment when it comes to road money anyway, especially when I look at Randall Road, et cetera. So I don't have a problem with this, I guess is what I'm saying.
All I will say is that all I'm saying is that I would like there to be a program in place, and to me, even, forget the money for 2 seconds, even if the county didn't have to do all the engineering and the babysitting of a bridge project and the township did that for a township bridge, that would greatly impact and help the transportation department. So we're not only paying for it, but we're also doing all the babysitting of all the process to get it done. We have to be involved because of the federal match side of it. But beyond that aspect of it, we could be out of it. Even if we county said we will pay for every cent of the 20% match, but all the engineering time that we spent would be done later, that would help them out.
But the townships don't have the capacity, don't have the personnel to do it.
Well, again, but it's
Okay,
Well, here's,
we can agree to
what's
disagree.
involved now? Is there a point, maybe us, what would be the benefit of the county saying if we're gonna take over these bridges, there are bridges now? Right, because if that's the other way to go, we're gonna say the townships can't do it.
how do you take over a bridge on a township road?
Well, that's what I'm asking, I guess, somebody, not myself.
It would be a pretty rare occurrence to have that happen.
Yeah.
Because jurisdiction is determined by the state.
Yeah.
And it's from point A to point B, and you maintain the assets between point A and B, unless there was some other intergovernmental agreement between entities to say that they take on maintenance of something. But as far as IDOT would look, A to B, those are your assets, whichever agency or entity runs it.
Well, because like I'm in agreement that we need to have bridges in good shape. We don't want a bridge issue, right? And I don't know, if it was our bridge, we'd be like, yes, of course we're gonna do it. Where is the contest over this is mine, this is theirs? Like, there's no benefit to us saying we have this bridge over like a township, right? Like just having the bridge.
No.
Right, so.
Go ahead, Brian.
I absolutely understand the arguments. I absolutely understand that we can bring up points on both sides of this issue.
Yeah.
And I think the fact of the matter is that the people, the individuals that live in the areas, the farmers, others, these bridges are required. They just look to government to take care of it. They don't make the distinguishment between whether it's township or whether it's county. They just want it taken care of. And right now, it just seems to me we found the sweet spot, even though it's a little sweeter for townships than it is the county right now. I think we found the sweet spot in terms of the agreement. I think that we would be doing a disservice right now to try to, throw the baby out with the bathwater here and to move in that direction. I think that we need to support this.
Okay, so I brought it up because this is something that's obviously been going on for a long time, but I'm not aware of, okay, so do all township bridges then, other than the one where somebody jumped in with 50-50, actually provided some dollars. In terms of, I get the idea that there are areas of the county that really couldn't afford to pay for those, and it is the large equipment. It is, like I mentioned right at the beginning, and when we have our agricultural part of the economy, and moving those goods and services is not going to happen if the bridges aren't taken care of, and some townships probably do have a disproportionate share of their bridges. So that's not, to me, the more the issue. The more the issue is understanding. Until we talked today, I thought more townships were paying for some of the bridges than what I just heard today. I thought there was a disconnect between some townships and the others. In terms of, I get the point about Randall Road, but quite honestly, most of the money in terms of what we have is coming from the southeast corner, and there's a ton of people down there. I don't think there's in terms of, we talk about it, flow of dollars between, like here, we talk about for Metro or whatever, RTA, where we're an exporter of, we fund. I think the more urban areas of the county are definitely funding, our parts of the county, because, right, we all benefit from that. But that's, the flow of dollars is more that way, it's not coming the other way. This has already been approved by the county board as part of the 5-year plan, so I'm not looking to not approve it. I just thought we ought to talk about the funding. So.
Well, to their point where you were saying we would like to see maybe the townships take over more of the manpower, right?
Administrative.
Right. What would be the process for that conversation, starting with the township saying you're gonna have to start taking over more of the administrative? Because like saying no to this doesn't do that, it just, right?
To me, I am one of 18 votes.
Right.
I would like to have a discussion about the policy that, it's not a policy, about the perception that we just pay and handle everything with township bridges.
Yeah.
It has never been a discussion that the county board has taken up. And so it is, perhaps it's a policy because we've always done it.
Right.
But it's truly not a policy, and it is becoming a problem for transportation. And when we, as a finance committee, always look at, well, how can we save money? This is a huge area for them as far as cost goes. And not, again, not just the cost of fixing the bridge, but the administrative side of it. Because we are constantly hiring people to do the administrative because they don't have the staff to physically do it.
With all due respect, they're not going to have the staff to do it. They don't have the capacity.
Correct.
And so I think that ultimately, the population just expects this to be done. And so I think that while it is a slightly distasteful condition or situation in some respects, we still have responsibility here. And I think that that responsibility is one that we have to take very highly, because there are few things that are quite as volatile, if you will, within the population as streets and bridges.
And all I'm asking for is a discussion with
I
the
guess
county
that's my
board.
point, is how can we get that discussion forward? Like because I'm agreeable to having this discussion. This is probably, this is the moment at the moment, but this isn't gonna get to the whole board necessarily.
No, and all I'm, if I'm the lone wolf,
Yeah.
1 out of 18 that says that we need to change the course that we're currently on,
Yeah.
then I'm fine with that. I can, but
Right.
the fact that we don't ever have a discussion about
Right.
it is where I get frustrated.
Right.
And I truly agree. The motoring public, they don't go over a bridge and go, oh, was that a township bridge or was that a county bridge?
Right.
They could care less. They
Right.
want to make sure the bridge is open.
Right.
And I don't want to close bridges, and I 100% agree. The western half of the county, where most of the township bridges are, don't have the money. And the southeast corner, where there are few township bridges, they have the money. But if we don't ever have a discussion and we don't look at the full ramifications of the decisions that we're making as a county board, to me, we're doing a disservice to everybody. And it's a hot button issue, and I've been the asshole that keeps on bringing it up and keeps on being a thorn in transportation's butt, and I'm okay with that, because until something happens, I will continue to be that person.
Well, no, I support this discussion, because a part of it is, in my mind, also thinking about how we'll have people on our board who are really upset about raising MFT, right? Or like giving more money to, taxing more. But if this area of the county, which may be upset about raising taxes and for all these things, isn't going to acknowledge that they need these bridges and we need to have funds for it. This is where the discussion needs to happen, right? So that people aren't like, I hate government. Well, you don't hate it when they're fixing your roads, right?
I think Terry wanted to comment.
Oh.
Sarah, do you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay.
I I have to say, I think it's a very important conversation to have.
Yeah, that's, I'm,
Well, come to transportation, because we seem to have this every month when it comes up. Yes, Larry?
What was the vote at transportation?
6-1. Or was it 6-1? Or 5-1? I was the only no vote, I know that.
Well, the thing is, like, I'm yes to the bridge, but I'm also yes to having this discussion in the future. So
That's fine, yeah.
if the answer is you have to vote no to this bridge, which I don't really want to vote no to make this discussion start happening. You're like, no, we can vote yes to the bridge and also say, let's have the discussion. Although I also respect your stance, because it's
Well,
making
no, I
us-
mean, I guess
yeah.
my point is
Yeah.
this should be a transportation, it should be a transportation discussion. That's where it should start from. That has not happened. So, as a committee, if we want to have this discussion here, that's fine too, and push it out. I don't really care, but, to me, just burying our head in the sand for year after year after year after year is not productive. So.
well, can I jump in on them? Okay, so I agree. I think that this discussion has to happen. I think we've already proved this. I'm not a no on this particular bridge. But I do think, I mean, if these requests are still gonna come before this committee, I guess then the discussion can start here. If it's not
They
starting.
always come before us because we're spending money on this.
Right, but to your point, since it's not coming up in transportation, it can certainly come up here as a starting point.
I don't care, we could have a joint transportation finance meeting to discuss this. I don't really care, but.
That would be fine.
Fine, yeah, I'm agreeable to that too.
So how do we move forward with that to make sure the discussion happens?
Well, I think we have an obligation to make a decision on this item first.
Yep.
And then secondly, I think that we could extend an invitation to transportation. This committee could decide by consensus to extend an invitation to transportation committee for a joint meeting to discuss this particular issue.
Fine with me. All right, anything else on 611? You guys were a great help there.
Happy to help.
Anything you wanted to add?
That's why we're here.
Yeah, I followed the discussion, and yeah, we look forward to being part of that conversation in the future.
Okay, we're on 611. I don't know if you want to vote on it or not, but you're welcome to abstain, but I'll still call you, so. Terry?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And myself, no. Okay, motion carries. We are on to item 612, I'll entertain a motion. Teresa? Carolyn?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit more. I mean, it's obviously very well stated in here and the information's there, but I had been listening to the transportation calls from the RTA, and they had the same thing going on at their level of pace, so I wanted you to
Sure,
have
so
an
yeah,
opportunity to talk about it.
no, thank you for letting me talk about this. So this is kind of an exciting new program we're going to be offering later this month. The idea is, in a nutshell, if I had to condense it, we're going to help people, certain people, not everyone, but certain folks, we're going to help them by subsidizing their rides on Uber or a different TNC called USER. And how it's going to work is, if you're an eligible rider, which you need to be you need to be a resident of McHenry County, that's the first step. You need to also be a senior over 65 or someone with a disability of any kind, really. So if you meet that criteria, resident, senior, or disabled, then you can be eligible for this program. You, as a rider, will have to get on your Uber app or a USERV app, just like everybody else, and you'll pull up your trip from point A to point B, but instead of seeing like a $25 fare, you'll see a $16 subsidy from the county applied to your trip. So that trip will only be $9 for you instead of $25. And the county will be charged the $16. And so this is going to be a new thing we're going to offer. And again, it's filling a gap because our current bus program, our MCRide program, you have to reserve your trip 1 to 7 days ahead of time. Now, for a lot of people, that's fine. But for a lot of folks, that they don't know where they're going to go 7 days ahead of time. They want to go somewhere right now because something came up today. That's what this program is for, is to serve that sort of spontaneous, on-demand type trip. And make it affordable for people, because Uber's out there today, but for a lot of folks, it's unaffordable to use on a regular basis. This will make that program a little bit more affordable for people. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of how it works. We're partnering with PACE on this, or piggybacking on a PACE contract. And yeah, if it's approved by the county board in June, we'll make it go live the next day. So we can start taking registrations the day after county board.
Larry? So there's no income eligibility requirement?
We thought about that, Larry. We did think really hard about making income and eligibility criteria, but the one thing that held us off from doing that is we want this to be as low staff. We don't want more staff time to be put into this than we need to, right? So if we had to verify income criteria, we would have to either hire more staff or take existing staff away from what they're doing to make sure they're verifying their income is what they say they are. The program as it's structured today really is a pretty minimal effort on DOT staff, right? That was really the focus of this, because we're using the RTA and their reduced fare and ride-free permit program as sort of that eligibility criteria. So if you're registered for the RTA's reduced fare or ride-free card, you're eligible for this program.
And there's no destination requirement, doctor, grocery store, or anything like that?
There is not. Again, we thought about that, but again, that gets, the only destination requirement is that one leg of your trip needs to be in McHenry County. So for example, if you're registered for this program, you can't take a trip from O'Hare to Naperville, right? Because those are both outside McHenry County. But if you want to get a ride from McHenry County to O'Hare using this program, you can do that and then back again. But no, we're not limiting. You can only use this for medical, or you can only use this for work. There's a lot of reasons why. I mean, we not to say we couldn't have done that, Larry, but we chose not to at this point.
Okay. Well, obviously I'm over 65, so I'd be eligible. And if I wanted to ride to O'Hare, that would be nice, because that's always a challenge for me out here. Or if I wanted to ride down to the local festival that I didn't want to drive home from.
Yep.
This just seems like there's a lot of potential for abuse on this, just because you don't have any criteria like that on it.
I wouldn't say, no, I hear you. I wouldn't say abuse. Abuse is not the word I would use. I think if you meet the criteria, this is a program that should be eligible for you, right? And so in those cases, you're right. You, as an over 65, could use this program to get to that festival and get home from it at the end of the day. If the county board wanted to set a more stringent criteria, maybe just people with disabilities, for example. You have every right to tell me to change this up. But again, we had to start somewhere. And because we're creating this program from scratch, this is where we thought that line should be drawn, is those two criteria.
Theoretically, I like the program. I mean, the idea is right. I'm just hard to get past the idea of, in my mind, how I could abuse it. And if I'm thinking of it,
We won't quote you on that.
I just, that's all I got to say. I guess I've got my answer. Thank you.
Carolyn?
So I guess to that comment, I think there's a cap. Anything above a certain amount. So if you want to go to O'Hare, you get that $16. You're going to pay the $9. After the $16, you're going to pay the rest. And an Uber trip to O'Hare or to some festival in Naperville is going to cost you a lot of money. This is just, I think, in my opinion, the way I read this, it's designed to help people who don't have access to a car, who might be, over 65 and fast approaching, or with a disability, have access to transportation in a county that is transportation challenged because we are so dependent upon the car. And I think this gets people out, especially in our rural part of the county, where who may not have access to a car, but their doctor may not be in Harvard, maybe it's in Crystal Lake, and now they've got to find somebody who's going to give them a ride, and they really need to get to the doctor, and they can't get there. And honestly, as people age, we do have a situation too sometimes where some people continue to drive longer than they should. But if they had access to reliable transportation, that could get them to and from their destination safely, this is a benefit to everybody. So I think the potential for abuse is not quite as big because of that cap in terms of how much they're gonna pay. It provides an answer to that transportation issue we have, especially as we get out to our more rural areas of the county.
And I will, if I could just respond to that real quick. So there is one, I'll say this, our current bus program is open to anybody. Anybody can ride for any reason, anywhere. So that's MCRide today. So if you want to talk about people, quote unquote, abusing, I mean, that program is as open as you can make a program. This is much more limited and stringent on who can ride, where they can ride, you know. So, and the cost, to Carolyn's point, it's higher, right? So the $4 fare for the rider is going to prevent a lot of folks from using this on a, I guess, a frequent basis, right? It's still gonna be relatively expensive for a lot of people to pay $4 each time they wanna go somewhere on this program. It's cheaper than the market rate, but it's not as cheap as MCRide, where it's $1.50, right? So that's, I just wanted to point that out as well.
Teresa?
The other thing I'm thinking is that, you know, approving this now, and if we find that we need more than $420,000 to fund this program, then there's discussion of, do we need to put some limits on it?
Yeah, and that was gonna mention that too. The limiting factor is the funding. There's $420,000 identified for this program this fiscal year. We're gonna be doing budget very shortly here. We'll be figuring out whether that's enough next year or we need more or less. You know, I think we're gonna learn a lot over the next couple of months on who needs this program, how frequently they're riding. We're going to get all the data. These TNCs have assured us that we're gonna get every single bit of data we possibly can about who's riding, where they're going, how frequently, and we'll kind of learn a lot more as we go on this program.
Oh, I have a side question. How did you determine $420,000?
We had to pick it, a year ago, when we were doing budget last year, for this year, we had to pick a number, and this was a number that sounded good in our minds to get us through this year. And again, I probably think that's way more than we need. I think there's not gonna be very much uptick at all, because again, if you think about it, a lot of the seniors I know, they aren't necessarily using Uber on a regular basis, if they even know how to use Uber, the Uber app, right? I mean, the Uber is still for people over 65. There's a lot of folks that do know how to use it and do on a regular basis, but there's a lot of folks that don't. And I think that's going to limit uptick on this program, just based on just sort of the understanding of what Uber is and how it works, that kind of thing.
Do you guys have any questions? Okay, go ahead.
So I think this is a wonderful program. Working with the seniors, I see how difficult it is for them to get places. So two questions. First, what if that, like my mother-in-law, for example, she wouldn't know how to use the app on her phone. So what can you do to provide assistance, or is there another way? Can they make a phone call?
So we're talking with PACE about some type of option for people who don't want to use the Uber app. But again, my hesitancy, and you can tell I'm hesitant, is because again, this program was structured to minimize staff time. We only have one staff person at DOT that's going to be in charge of this program, and she's got other duties that she's doing on a day-to-day basis. So our goal is not to have her spend 8 hours a day registering people and scheduling their rides for them. That's not the intent of this. It never was, and I don't think our department is ready to take that on. So we're hoping 99.9% of people schedule their own Uber app, their own Uber ride, just like the rest of us do, right? But there's always going to be some folks, I think, that need that extra help, and I think we're willing to help the outliers that need that help. But we don't want this to turn into a program where we're doing everything for them, if that makes sense.
Well, and it looks like since you have these three other, the Township and then the two senior service associates, they would be able to step in and help those.
I've already presented to Mental Health Board a couple weeks ago, and all of the providers that are funded through Mental Health Board, they've offered to help people get registered for this program, register them for the Uber app, and they also offered to help their clients schedule their trips on Uber and UServe. So that is an important point. We're trying to sort of teach the teacher, right? So we're trying to teach the providers and the agencies how to do this themselves, so we don't have to do it for everyone.
And one other thing. So you said the cap is $420,000. So once that's done, then we can't do it anymore.
The tap shuts off unless the county board appropriates additional funds, the tap's off and the program stops for the rest of the fiscal year.
Just wondering, Larry, would you be more comfortable if we put something in here that says after 1 year, or 1 year, or when the funding runs out, there will be a review of the program to see if it was.
I think that's gonna happen anyway, budget-wise. I don't think there's any way they can't review that.
But just to look to see who was using it, if the program is being used as intended. If not, that's fine, I just throw it out there.
I don't know that that's important. It's a budget matter, so.
One thing I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just looked it up, and I can Uber from here to my house for $19.90. The $4 that portion of it that I would pay is less than the gas money I would burn.
So if you schedule a week in advance, you can Uber back and forth there.
You can Uber instantly. All I do is push a button and hit.
Yeah, but I thought you said you had to schedule it.
I was talking about our bus program.
Oh,
We gotta
okay.
schedule a
Got
meeting
it,
at our
okay.
bus program.
5 minutes away, I can have an Uber here.
So you're gonna be taking Uber from now on?
It's a thought.
Okay.
What's in
You
the
know?
water bottle?
You talk.
Well, then you can give us some feedback. How it
Well,
works.
that's true.
I'm thinking more on Friday night when I wanna go out and not drive home, you know, so.
You
yeah.
come to the county building for that?
No, it's a place that's cheaper than. Okay.
But I mean, like,
guess
that is the point, that is the point of the program.
You're right, part of it.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Theoretically, it's
Kelly-
good,
Kelly
and it's
covered it.
probably worth the experiment, but.
Okay. Brian?
Well, I think we talked about this before as the staff was looking at trying to come up with a methodology to fill this void, because I think we all recognize that there is a void here in McHenry County. And so I appreciate the creativity. I think it's a good program. Are we going to be able to visualize all of the challenges? I think it's worthy to have this conversation, but we're not going to be able to visualize everything that's going to possibly go wrong. And so I think this is a really good start, and I trust the staff is going to provide us with the background statistics that we're going to need to look at this in the future. But the monies are budgeted. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's innovative. I think we're the first ones that are trying something like this, and so it's not without risk, but I think it's a worthy risk based upon the fact that we have such a void here. So I'm very supportive of this.
Anything else? Carolyn?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the same thing, and I think that in an area that's very dependent upon cars and people love the freedom of their cars, I really don't feel like there's gonna be a lot of abuse. I think people enjoy having access to their cars. There might be occasional, but I think that this is an opportunity to fill the void that we're talking about and get people to where they need to go.
And we're excited to potentially for cost savings, right? So every time we provide a trip on MCRide, the county subsidizes that trip up to $19 per trip, on average, $19. This, we're at max gonna subsidize that trip $16. So if we get some people that are regular MCRide users that say, hey, I'm gonna use this instead, we're gonna save money as the county in the long term, right? There will be new people that use this program that don't use MCRide today, but depending on the mix of what those riders look like, we could actually save money in the long term overall as a department. So again, we're gonna give regular updates on the financing of this program to this committee. Transportation's gonna hear about it, obviously, so there'll be regular updates, and we can always tweak this program in the future to kind of make it operate more efficiently.
I'm actually really excited about this, but also thinking to myself, the Uber riders, or the Uber drivers, the drivers are probably residents.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's maybe a win-win for a lot of people, not just the people who can use the $16, but also the younger people in the county who will be like, oh, this is a new.
And that's another reason why I think the uptick should be slow, I think, because again, there's not a ton of Uber drivers out there today. But after a couple months, after people learn about this program, more and more people might say, hey, it might make financial sense for me to drive on weekends or at nights. And all of a sudden now, for riders, they have more opportunities and they have a quicker response from a driver because there's more drivers on the road. So that, I think by the end of this year, we'll kind of see what the true potential of this program is.
The McLary Connect.
I don't think she's excited about this, because like, for instance, I wouldn't be part of this program, but earlier this week I messed up and my kid needed to ride his bike at top speed. If I didn't believe there was an Uber that would take him that quickly to where he needed to be. So he was pretty upset and was also late to where he was going.
All right, anything else? All right, we'll go to vote then. Kelly?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And myself, yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to reports. Chief Financial Officer, I know Baker Tilly is a first and foremost
Yes.
that Carrie has to talk about here, so.
Mike, I just wanted to ask you, do we have executive session today?
No,
Do we have anything else that we have to vote on except adjournment?
no.
Okay, I'm at a conference that's about ready to break open here with lots of noise. I'm gonna go ahead and log on.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Come on down.
All right.
Try out some of these brand new chairs we got.
Gonna miss the show. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see all of you again. I also have online here Leah Gaffney. Leah had every intention of being here with me, but she was feeling under the weather yesterday, and I think made the thoughtful decision of not showing up feeling sick for all of us. But Leah is a big part of the audit. She's a manager on our team and has been part of the audit for 2 years, playing an expanding role every year. So she'll actually be here with me, I'm sure, next year. So I'm going to spend most of my time going through a new handout that we haven't done before. You don't have all the notes on yours, but these financial results. We've been using these for some clients in the past, and they've been well received. So we put them together for this meeting as well. I think it's a lot easier than flipping through the financial statements, and it just kind of hits on your major funds. It gives you a quick look at where you sit financially at the end of the year. So as I go through this, if you have any questions, just stop and ask me. That's what I'm here for.
Which one are you on?
It's called the financial results. That's what mine, I don't know what the name of the file is. It should be part of your packet though.
I have
I think I call it like a summary or something.
I got highlights.
That's
Highlights,
probably
sorry.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Where am I?
sounds right.
Well, I was.
Where did I find this? I'm
The
sorry.
email that we
Yeah.
got.
Email?
Email on Tuesday the 4th.
Is this the reporting and insights?
Not that one.
Not this
Yeah,
one.
I won't touch on that.
Oh.
This one.
Annual
Yep, you got it.
comprehensive.
Okay,
It's
financial,
got a
the
black
last
heading
one.
on the top.
The last one of the three.
Yeah, last one of the three.
Good. Before I jump into that, I do want to mention a couple of things though. We're actually sitting here talking about the audit 3 months earlier than we were last year. That was a stated goal. And most of that credit goes to Carrie, Dodie, Jeremy, everybody that gets involved with the audit really put forth a lot of effort this year, and it went very well. And not only the timing, you know, last year's audit opinion was August 30th, this year we're May 31st, so you actually didn't even have to extend to submit your report to the GFOA, which has been the first time in a number of years you haven't had to ask for that extension. But we got here because of this. We got here because the county was really well prepared. We came out, we kind of fluctuate a little bit each year, like how many people do we bring, depending on the preparedness and such. We came in with our full team, and everything was ready for us, with the minor exception of a couple of receivable balances that were really being held up by the funding agencies. Even capital assets was ready for us this year during audit week, which was the first time I can remember being at McHenry. So huge amount of progress in that respect. Also, the records are in good shape. We only had 3 material entries this year. And I know, you know, the county has a high bar. They're hoping for no entries. Because years ago, you were able to achieve that. But 3 entries is really outstanding. I always say 10 or fewer in my book, and I've been doing this a long time, is fantastic. And so to only have 3 for all the transactions that run through your general ledger, it is great. So then we hit the next phase of the audit. And that's where last year took some time because there's a lot of people learning how to prepare your financial statements. We, Baker Tilly, and a lot of CPA firms prepare financial statements for governments because they don't have the resources. But McHenry's always owned that. It's fluctuated over the last few years as far as the degree of involvement and such that we've been pulled in. And this year they took another big step forward. So that turnaround from when we finished auditing to actually issuing went way down this year as well. And you took back the preparation of the statement of cash flows. Jeremy did that, did a really nice job with it. You prepare all the notes, all the schedules, and then there's a whole separate set of entries where you have to take all the funds that you look at, the general fund, all these governmental funds, and you convert them to full accrual. And that's a big effort. And we've been doing that for the county, most of that I would say for the last several years. Well, this year, the county prepared all the supporting documents. We audited those and we kind of put them in a spreadsheet and gave it to the county. And so next year, they're gonna do all of it. And so I really think you're set up, as you've been kind of noting in your status of this comment in the report, where you want to be in 2024 is to have complete ownership of your preparation, your financial statements. And you're certainly, you're going to get there. I have no doubt about that. So it went very well, point being. And again, the credit goes to Carrie and her team for all that they put in. And you can see the ownership and the real desire to want to get it to that point, which is great. As far as deliverables go, obviously the financial statements, the annual comprehensive financial report, we say ACFR, it's a crazy acronym. It's a big document, a lot of stuff in there. That's why we put this summary together here. But if you are going to spend any time on it, take a look at the management discussion and analysis, the MD&A, which is right up front. I mentioned this to you in the past. It's like an executive summary. Carrie and her team write it. They provide explanations as well as far as why things changed from last year to this year. So I think it's valuable to read through. And in the back, there's the statistical section, which the GFOA requires. I think that's actually one of the most interesting things to read in a set of financials issued by governments that do a full ACFR, because it gives you 10 years of historical information. And when you look at government financial operations, yeah, it's interesting to know where you landed at the end of the year, but what really matters is trends. And that will point out a lot of that to you, and that's why the GFOA requires it. Last thing I'll mention on the financials is we issued a clean opinion. Most of it boilerplate language, but that's what you want. It's important to your granting agencies and if you have bondholders and banks and others. So that means you follow GAAP, okay, all the county rules, and we're up to about 100 right now. The other document that we issue, I won't walk through it, but it's the one you had pulled up there earlier, is the reporting and insights. There's a lot of different things in here. What are our responsibilities as your auditors? Sometimes there's a misunderstanding of that. What are the areas we focus on during the course of the audit? There is a discussion of the upcoming GASBs. They slowed down a little bit, but there's 3, I think, mentioned in here, and there's one that was just recently issued as well. So required communications, these would be things like if we had difficulties during the course of the audit, if we came across any fraud, if there were these kind of nasty issues, if you want to say. There's nothing of that sort in your report. But the thing that probably draws the most attention is a section that regarding internal control matters. So in the past, there have been a few comments in here. You're down to 1. You're down to the one that we have in almost every one of our reports that you're working on, and that's the fact that we do still get involved with the preparation of your financial statements, and we have those 3 material entries this year. So it's not a judgment thing so much as an auditing firm. The standards really say if you have material entries or you prepare the financial statements, then you are supposed to have this comment. So there's a nice update in there as far as the progress that we just talked about, as well as a response from finance. You can take a look at that, but it definitely demonstrates the progress that's been taking place over the last couple of years. Can you get to the point where you move it down to significant deficiency or maybe get rid of it? Absolutely. Yeah, I think they're almost there. So we'll just revisit it each year. Any questions on that? If not, I'll walk through the 4-page handout here. Okay. All right, so page 1 is taking a look at your general fund, obviously your primary operating fund, and very, very high level. There's a lot of detail in the financials, but you can see your revenues came in at $90.4 million, and your expenditures in that actual column 90.1. So you had a positive change, and I'm looking in that far left column, in your fund balance of $269,000. That's about 0.5%. Okay, so essentially you broke even. So you ended up with 61.1 million in fund balance. If you compare that to the final budget amounts there, you can see the variances. So revenues were actually under budget by about 3.5, but expenditures were even more significantly under budget at 8.1. So revenues are under budget for things like recording fees, foreclosures, there's public health federal grants that were under, income tax replacement taxes, all those were under. But then investment income was actually over budget, and we've seen that everywhere this year. Because of your portfolio and a large percentage being in fixed income securities, those have taken a hit the last few years, but they've definitely rebounded this year. So again, everywhere we're going, we're seeing that prove out to the bottom line. Expenditures, again, well under budget at 8.1. If you look in the back of the financial statements, pages 81 to 89, you can see all the different departments, but pretty much across the board. The ones that stood out were health, planning, facilities, and then some non-departmental and capital outlay were down significantly compared to budget. So what does that mean? If you flip to the next page, you can see that 61.1 million broken down into the different categories that make up your fund balance. And so that could be up to 5 different categories, and the county has 4. And we've laid it out for the last 3 years. So again, trends is important. Pretty darn consistent from year to year, but I'm gonna start at the bottom, non-spendable, and that 2023 column over on the right in the middle of this page. So $1.4 million, up a little bit from last year, 1.1. Most of that, 1 million of it, is made up of an advance or like a loan that was made from the general fund to the IMRF fund many years ago, and it's been outstanding as long as I can recall. These are driven by GAAP. It's not a management decision or anything else. These are amounts that are in your fund balance, and they're just not available to apply towards anything else because of their long-term nature. 1.8 in restricted, down a little bit from last year, but these are external restrictions, so grants, statutes, things that say you've got this money and it has to be set aside for this specific purpose. So these are set aside for the sheriff and the recorder and a couple other departments. Again, it's in the footnotes to the statements. 8.3 in assigned, that's made up of 2 different items. 3.2 is for the 2024 budget you're applying for the use of the fund balance, and about 5 million for capital projects. So those categories are up from the previous year, so you can see how it went from 5.6 to 8.3. Even though your fund balance went up, that then flows out of that last category of unassigned, where it went from 52 down to $49 million because you used or set aside more unassigned. The county has a minimum fund balance policy, and it's spelled out down there, but it's basic. It's a good policy from compared to others that I see. It's taking a look at the fund balance and trying to strive for a minimum amount, which the GFOA would say 2 months, which is about 17%. The county has a policy to maintain, unrestricted fund balance, which is made up of committed, which you don't have any, assigned and unassigned, equal to 5 months of the subsequent year's operating budget, so 2024. And you can see the calculation there, but you're at just over 7 months at the end of the year. And last year, you were at 7.5. Okay. So you're above the 5 by a couple of months.
Hey, John.
Good fiscal. Good.
So when you say GFOA recommends 2 months?
At a minimum.
At a minimum, how do they take into account the structure by which the entity receives its revenue?
They don't. It's just a blanket statement. I think the county worked with GFOA years ago to develop their policy, and that's what they recommend. They say, when they come out with that 2 months, they're saying at a minimum, because there are some places that are bare bones, and that's not good, depending on the funding sources and everything else that you have to consider. But then GFOA goes on to say you need to consider those funding sources and other funds that might be reliant upon the general fund, which we do see that, especially in counties. There's a lot of things that you have to look at the uniqueness of each place. So when we get asked, well, should it be 2 months? Should it be something else? I would say it depends. You got to look at the whole picture and come up with a policy. That's what the county has done. I don't see many places with a 2-month policy. I'll add that.
Well, especially in Illinois, the way that how things go here. So that's why I'm just, I guess that statement to me is problematic unless it's explained in a bigger picture.
I agree, yep. And I'm just adding it for context because, again, you know, most important thing is looking at your own policy and how you adhere to it, and you have year after year. But we do get asked, well, what's a good number? So I threw it out there.
Okay.
Yeah. Most places, I would say, a common policy is anywhere from 25 to 40% these days. And if there's excess, then they use it for capital or something to reduce borrowing of that nature.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're within that range. All right. So flipping over, I think that's it on that page. Page 3. So here's your other governmental major funds that are up front in your financial statements. So the funds that have a lot of activity compared to the others, basically. You can see the mental health and IMRF had a decrease in their fund balance, 3-4%, each one of those, but still have solid fund balances. The American Rescue Fund for the ARPA funds went up $5.2 million. That amount represents the interest on those investments, okay? The way the accounting works in that fund is that those funds have been advanced, so you basically match the revenues, you apply the revenues to offset the expenditures, but the interest that's earned on it is not restricted, so that does go down to the fund balance. The RTA sales tax fund went up $2.5 million. Almost all that was derived, again, from the investment income on the $35 million that sits in that fund. And then all the non-major funds, which are in the back of the financial statements on pages 90 to 158, are consolidated in that one column, the non-major funds. Those went up $9.2 million. And you can see the breakdown that we put there. Most of it's in special revenue funds. Page 4, last page here is taking a look at your proprietary funds. Proprietary funds are full accrual. And you've got 2 enterprise and 1 internal service. So Valley High is an enterprise fund, as you know, and both the revenues and the expenses are up from the prior year, if you were to compare here. But it still had a loss of $1.2 million. So the net position went down about 3.3%. And it has gone down for the last several years. And then 911 went up $2.1 million, and so it sits at 17 at the end of the year. That increase, if you were to look at what was driving it, the revenues actually came in about $1.3 million higher than budget for 911. And then lastly, your internal service fund, which is used to administer health claims, that went down this year, $871,000. This is kind of the nature of internal service funds, where they will fluctuate, especially a health-related one, fairly significantly from year to year, but it still has a positive net position. And then you just, if it was building, you're probably overcharging those departments, or if it was negative, which I have seen in some counties, their rate structure that you're charging out is probably not appropriate. But it did go down $871,000 this year. Quite often we'll present a couple slides on debt as well, but you don't have any debt, so that's a great thing. I don't have to talk about it. Any questions on the numbers?
Any questions by committee?
The last audit that we're doing is about to take off the single audit compliance audit. We always do that in the summer. We also issue a circuit report the same day we issue the county's financial statements, so that went very well too.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Can I just comment?
Yeah.
If you don't mind. First off, I do appreciate the report. Thanks so much, John. It was very concise, but also I think gave us a good overview in the written report, as well as your comments with regards to the financial position. But I also want to say that I truly appreciate the responses that were provided by Carrie from the original report, and I think that it was very comprehensive in terms of our position and what we are trying to do. And so that letter of May 31st of 24, I think, was quite informative and is a really good document for us to see in terms of your responses. So thank you very much for that.
Larry?
I didn't have a question for Maker Tilly on this, but the Valley High Fund, the net position at the end of the year and the construction that's going on out there, maybe Teresa could shed some light on this at the next meeting, not particularly right now, because I know that'd be unfair to ask that. But when that construction is done, how's that gonna affect the net position of Valley Hyatt when it's all over with? And maybe it won't, maybe there's funds already set aside for that, I don't know. But if we could get an update on that, whether it's from Carrie or from Teresa, who's chairman of Valley High.
Yeah, I should be able to tell you, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're always, the Valley High is kind of always decreasing. But we do have funds for it. We have a hefty fund, a healthy fund balance for Valley High. But yes, I will bring in my proper documents to be prepared to speak.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Chairman?
That's fine.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Carrie and the whole department for the great work that they did and the challenges that they faced, and really did an awesome job. I mean, the strides that you made this year were fabulous, and so just really appreciate it. And look forward to next year, and theoretically, you know, John not even having anything to really say, so. I mean, not that I don't like you, John, but, you know. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring to us, Carrie?
I do not. Next month we'll have an ARPA update and then the quarterly update on revenue and expenses. And we'll tie in the jail with that.
Okay. Are you gonna use a fancy dashboard type thing to?
Wow, you know I like the fancy stuff.
I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Economic Development Corporation. So a couple things. As you know, we hired Mark Picos, so he's our new executive director. He started on Monday and has already been working diligently to wrap his head around what's going on. I was fortunate enough yesterday to spend several hours with him going to DuPage County for, you know how we have our annual dinner? So DuPage County does an annual breakfast. So we went down there to support them and what they're doing, and talk with Greg a little bit. So I was able to spend a couple hours in the car with them and kind of, you know, share with him what's going on and how we're doing. We did talk about the ARPA grant that was awarded to MCEDC. He was aware of it, but not really understanding what it was all about and what the vision of this committee was and what things were happening. So he was really excited about it. He started spewing out a whole bunch of ideas that he had, and I'm like, okay, well, just, you know, just we'll get it. So I did propose to him that we would work together to kind of formulate what we're doing, and then I did throw past him that perhaps he would come before our committee and kind of present the revised vision of what that program will look like before we fully implement it. I feel like I wanted to give him the autonomy to be able to kind of put his own stamp on it. And so some of the ideas he was just throwing out were pretty exciting, and I thought it would be okay if the committee kind of heard that same thing before it gets rolled out to the public. So if that's okay with you, then guess what?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think that's great. My question was gonna be if he has a lot of ideas and there's a potential for, you know, augmenting what the program is there potential for allocating more dollars to that project?
I mean, I think that's a question for the committee, but he feels like the amount of money that's there can more than accomplish what it is trying to achieve. Yeah, so, you know, yeah. And I don't want to take the thunder away from him, but, you know, his idea was to involve more of the partners that are already here in the county as part of that program, just because he didn't want to be duplicating efforts that they're already doing. So bringing them in and making them a part of the program so that it's, in essence, so that the businesses that we're touching are getting a more rounded service level than just what MCEDC could do by itself. So anyways, so that's exciting. We have our board meeting on Tuesday. So that will be Mark's first board meeting. And we all promised that we would, go easy on them and, just kind of understand. I mean, it's truly, when you're involved with things on a day-to-day basis, you kind of lose the perspective of how much is really going on. And then when you have someone coming in new, they're, every day you're throwing something new at him. And so it can get overwhelming, and, we're very patient to allow him the ability to learn and understand and then grow. So. We are looking for a speaker for the dinner. So if any of you have thoughts, ideas, you can either give them to myself or to Mark direct, but we always are challenged with what that looks like and who that individual is. And part of that challenge for the board is that we're always looking for someone that can bring meaning and depth to both the businesses that come and to the people that come. But typically speaking, we don't want to pay for that speaker. And the reality is that, a lot of the speakers that are really good are $10,000 to $20,000 to come for the engagement plus expenses. So, and that was part of the reason why we went to the DuPage event, because, DuPage is a much larger county than us. But surprisingly, the number of people that were there were within 50 of what we have at our event. So it wasn't like it was a much larger event. But they had some really good dynamic speakers that spoke and I felt did a good job of making it interesting for the people that were there.
What did they pay for them?
I don't know if they did. We didn't get a chance to ask Greg that question, but I don't believe that they actually did, because the speakers were two of the sponsors. So one was a bank and one was a financial institution. So they had the bank CEO talked about things going on in the world of banking and business, and the financial company, they brought in one of their small cap advisors who talked about the economy and where he saw things kind of going in, they talked a lot about the Fed and, how the economy is chugging along and some of the pitfalls that we as a country are facing. So again, when you look at the business and who we're trying to touch, it was meaningful because, and again, Mark and I kind of talked on the way home. It was a situation where we've always talked about perhaps doing two events because we've talked about doing a breakfast instead of a dinner. And so we've talked about perhaps doing a breakfast in the spring and a dinner in the fall. And then when we were kind of throwing out ideas, looking at who we're trying to touch, as a business owner, for me, I'm always looking at the fall, trying to set myself up for the following year. So, what worked last, meaning the year that you're in right now. So if you're meeting in November, what things worked, what didn't work, and then how can I set myself up to be successful, coming for the following year. And in the spring, you're looking at, okay, so what outside influences, i.e. the Fed interest rates, will have an impact on my success as a business, future recession, whatever. And so if you took that thought process and moved it forward, those would be potentially good ideas to have two events, versus just one. And there, again, I think there's a different set of clientele that you're going to get with a breakfast versus with a dinner. And quite honestly, I feel like there's enough going on in this county, and there's enough energy, especially with Mark coming on board and the true excitement that he has about this position, that that energy and that positiveness can hopefully create a positive influence, you know, not only for MCEDC, but for the county and all the partners that we work with. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of where things are going.
I would love at some point for them to have a speaker that talks about small business. It seems like a lot of them talk about the big business and trends. You know, maybe, I guess that I should be talking to somebody else, but, you know,
No,
there's
but
so many
that's-
small businesses here that do need the help and
Well, and that, again, that's why this whole grant that we're talking about, you know, and that was, you know, he didn't quite understand what the vision was, and so, you know, that was me kind of explaining to him the vision of the committee and what the grant was supposed to be doing. He read what was presented to him through what Jim had left him, and he was confused and not really getting it and was like, what? And so when I tried to explain, you know, even what he read was not accurate, you know, that kind of a light bulb went on and he was really excited at that point. Because he agrees, we have so many businesses that are either just startups or are still in someone's garage basement or, you know, have little, I mean, McHenry just opened their little incubator things, you know, Huntley's doing that also. And so we have so many opportunities to try and help propel small, you know, micro businesses basically into success, that's, you know, truly what the program that we had talked about with ARPA dollars was supposed to try and, you know, give them that tools to be able to be successful. So I agree, you know, we do have, you know, DuPage has, you know, businesses that are billions of dollar businesses, you know, we don't have that here in the county. And so I think we need to embrace what our niche is, and that truly is more of the probably 10 employees and under businesses, you know. But anyways.
One of the most enjoyable and enlightening presentations to me was several years ago, and I'm terrible with names, so I apologize for that, but it was the individual that gave us a broader perspective on the state of Illinois and kind of took a more positive bent on that. Do you remember that presentation?
I do. I don't remember who that was, though. It was a gentleman, shoot.
Was that at the EDC dinner?
Yes.
Yeah, he, you know, it was interesting, not to change the subject, but the lieutenant governor was there yesterday, but she didn't speak at all.
Yeah.
But they did make reference to, the gentleman that spoke from the bank made reference to things that were going on in the state of Illinois that helped specifically DuPage County,
Yeah,
but.
to get to my point, I do believe that we're at somewhat of a positive position right now. However, we don't talk about that. We always look at Illinois and we kind of go, woe is me, I live in Illinois type of thing in terms of the business environment and everything. And I think that we need to kind of turn that around, because I really do believe that even with our situation, and I'm going to leave it at that, not get into details, but we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of advantages, and I think we are set up, if you will, positioned well for a positive growth period, next 5-10 years. And I think that we need to try to focus on that and try to bring people around to that understanding a little bit more. So I would like to see that as some type of presentation. And I know that speaker, I think that we had in the past, was pretty good in terms of highlighting the position of Illinois in terms of the national and global economy, and I would like to see that type of thing.
So is it Mark Peterson, CEO of Intersect Illinois?
It could have been. I think maybe
I was just
that.
gonna
it
look
was-
up the past speakers.
So they did a great job yesterday of accenting how Illinois has helped DuPage County become the vibrant county that it was. And, you know, they didn't pass over, you know, the issues that Illinois faces, but they also, I spent much more time accenting or highlighting, I should say, the things that the Chicago region has going for it that can make Illinois a successful state. And, you know, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but we were, Illinois, specifically the Chicago region, and meaning, you know, the 7 collar counties and the city of Chicago were, for the 11th year in a row, you know, some national publication said that we were the best, you know, regional area for growth potential, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, they did a really good job of highlighting, you know, again, Illinois has challenges, but every state has challenges, right? And so I think it's a situation where, you know, you don't downplay the challenges, but you upplay all the great things that truly are going on.
And I think that for small businesses, we need to see that feeling of enthusiasm being expressed by other entities so that when people do decide to take a risk here, that they feel like there's some positive potential that exists there. And I will say, last night, some of us were able to go to the National McHenry County dinner. And I thought that one of the things that he did was to give us a pretty solid update on things that were remarkable to me. I mean, I'd never heard these details about the growth in the tourism industry and what that means, not only to McHenry County, but to the state of Illinois. And I think that that's the type of message we need to be putting out at this, what I truly believe is a real opportunity time in our area and in the state. And I think we can encourage people with that type of thing. So it's just mine, 2 bits. No, stop talking.
No, that's fine.
No, I think that's a great way to amplify things that are working, because we're too often talking about things that aren't working. And just the tourism dollars and whether it's the agritourism or the natural areas and what they add, because, you know, it's huge. Right, and he said, like, I forget the dollars, but of the total dollars coming in, it was like 52% were going to Chicago, which meant at least half of it is coming out in other areas, and we have a lot going on.
Yeah, I think sometimes we fall prey to this, woe is me, we live in Illinois, or woe is me, you know, we are in the shadow of Chicago, or woe is me, you know, we've got this problem or that problem. We've got to get beyond that.
Well, National McHenry County does a wonderful job
Truly.
of that.
Really good job.
And people are moving in. People
Yep.
see the wonderful county we are, the open spaces, the great place to live, the housing, all of that. Just needs to be a little more affordable. But, you know, when house prices go down.
Good stuff.
When the cows come home. Anyways, any other questions on EDC? Okay, Natural McHenry County. I mean, the dinner was last night. I don't know if I wasn't there, so if anyone wants to speak about it, but.
I mean, it was lovely. They did an excellent job putting together the dinner, and Daniel Thomas, who was the keynote speaker, he's from Illinois Bureau of Tourism.
Ithaca wasn't, Itasca.
He's from Itasca,
Yeah.
That was an excellent speech. I think I appreciated, oftentimes I hear a lot of negativity about Illinois, probably because he's part of tourism in Illinois. It was very positive, and it gave a good message, and I agree. I don't know why some of our colleagues want to always downplay Illinois and say bad things about Illinois, because it's not helpful to the county, and it's not helpful to our residents to say those kinds of things. So I agree, we should point out our highlights in areas when we should be highlighting our strengths, so. And it's good to see we had 3 new entities get plaques for being.
Illinois made.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And so it was nice seeing we had some of our businesses selling or giving samples of their work, so I enjoyed the whole evening, yeah.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a great evening. I'd never been to the venue before, so I was very impressed with the venue. The other thing I thought was great was how the meal was put together. It's not my kind of food, to be honest. I'm a meat and potato kind of guy, but nonetheless.
There was meat on there.
It was interesting.
Well, it encouraged sharing. It was a lot of,
Yeah.
it encouraged sharing.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
share, it was family style.
Well, I think, but to the point, it's, and I think what Chef Zach does is, everything he does is he draws on our farmers, our bakeries, our, these homemade, McHenry County made places, and just amplifies their role in McHenry County. So very much locally sourced. They were down there, they had people in there composting everything we did. And if anybody went downstairs to where they have the wedding venue, they had all their compost bins in. We had people who actually volunteered to do that. And to think that you can have a big event like that and not throw everything in the trash. I mean, it is possible to take care of what you're doing and not leave a lot of junk. So it just highlighted a lot of things. A lot of the businesses were there, who are part of it. I think it was, and the venue and the fact that we had these places and these producers and all these great things here in McHenry County.
Okay.
And they were young people. I'm gonna sit from the peanut gallery. They were young people. They weren't older. They were young people. Which pleased me to know it, because you need that next couple generations. That's great.
All right. Anything else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:28. Brian, Kelly, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.